Gary Tison, an inmate of Arizona State Prison, spent time behind bars for most of his life for numerous felonies. Tison always dreamt of escape. A foolish warden would unknowingly help Tison in accomplishing his goal by simply putting trust in such a man. On July 30th, 1978, Tison's three sons would help him and a fellow convict break out, leading them on a treacherous journey for freedom while taking the lives of the innocent along the way. They were finally caught weeks later after tragedy struck, teaching prison wardens across the country not to put trust in the deceitful. In the early to late 1960s, America underwent a ton of change in many areas, such as politics, music, and society in general. Life was very shaky and unpredictable then, with a lot of issues going on like the civil rights protests on racial injustice and hippie protests on the Vietnam War. America was evolving and maturing, leading people on triumphant lives even if tragedy was needed for these changes to take place. For example, the horrific assassination of President John F. Kennedy and the cruel mistreatment of African Americans. In the end, tragedy is a crucial part for any important changes to take place. Gary Gene Tison, a troubled man from the Pinal County area in Arizona, was a stone-cold criminal sent to prison multiple times for various reasons, such as passing bad checks and robbing grocery stores and armories. One of which sentences was for life after Tison murdered Officer Jim Steiner, who was taking him to prison in 1964. Most of these prison sentences were usually followed by various escape attempts, which ultimately failed and extending his sentence. Tison spent years away from home and his family, and finally decided he needed to get out. Over the next few weeks, he attempted to persuade and manipulate prison officials into thinking he changed himself. Seeming he was ready to turn his life around, Tison triumphantly managed to swindle prison officials, causing a reward that would get him one step closer to his objective. He was given an office with a desk and telephone, giving him much greater access to the outside world. In an interview with a civilian reporter, Tison said, "I got a wife and 3 kids. I want to get out someday, and I know that the only privileges that you get from the man come from working for others and accepting responsibility." Tison's plan to retain a good social status was so far successful. A short time after, an opportunity would spring up that Tison would take without hesitation. Robert Tison, a man put behind bars for the alleged murder of his brother-in-law. On his first day in prison, he very quickly took notice of the man in charge, Gary Tison. Tison soon met Gary when he was put to work in the kitchen with him. Tison was eager to meet him as he knew he could play a great role in his plan, a triumphant escape. Tison proposed his plan to Tison, asking him to fly his escape plane since he had experience as a pilot. Tison reluctantly declined, but Tison, not willing to take no as an answer, showed up the next week with eerie photographs of his wife and kids, threatening to kill them if he did not fly the plane.
Took pictures, there's a picture showing a guy following the kids home from school. He said, before you can do anything, they'll be gone.
Forcing Tison to agree to take part in the escape. Tison took Tison through training and a lot of planning out. Tison said the plan was to steal a couple $1 million worth of weapons from the Casa Grande armory and fly the cargo to Costa Rica to sell on the black market. But Tison had other plans.
If I had to escape with him and them guys, I was just going to crash the plane. There's no way I'm going to go out and kill 6 guards and be something I'm not.
Unwilling to take part in Tison's mad mind, he took wire cutters out of the garden shed and broke the chain holding the courtyard gate shut. Tison then made a run for it, attempting to get to the Department of Public Safety office to snitch out on Tison's plan, but he was quickly stopped in his tracks by guards with dogs. When brought to the warden's office, he was pleased to hear he was being moved to the maximum security wing for attempting to escape, and better yet, away from Gary Tison. A few weeks later, Tison heard sirens going off.
I don't know why, but I just had a feeling that was Gary just escaped. Escaped.
On July 30th, 1978, Donald, Ricky, and Raymond Tison would break their father, Gary Tison, out of the Arizona State Prison. along with fellow inmate Randy Greenawalt. They fled from the prison in a green Ford LTD. At a hospital nearby, they would steal a black Lincoln Continental and continue their journey to Mexico. 25 miles south of Quartzville, Arizona, their car got a flat tire, leaving them on the side of the road, in hopes for another ride, until U.S. Marine John Lyons and his family of 3 were coming home from a party and saw the Lincoln Continental on the side of the road and pulled over to help. Tison, acquainted by Greenawalt, came out of the bushes and ambushed the family, forcing them out of the car and into the Lincoln, and drew their guns. The family, pleading for mercy, offered everything they had to stay alive, but their pleas of mercy came to no avail. The 2 men opened fire on the family, instantly killing John, his wife Donelda, and his 22-month-old son Christopher, after a bullet went through Donelda and into Christopher's head, leaving Lyon's 15-year-old niece Teresa Tison wounded. Teresa would attempt to crawl away to safety, but would later bleed out and die near a bush. The gang left with the family's orange Mazda and traveled northward to Flagstaff. When they arrived in Flagstaff, a friend of Greenawalt equipped them with a truck and ammunition. Their next plan was to get to New Mexico, ditch the truck, and steal a plane, but the plan wound up being deserted, and they drove to Colorado and killed a newlywed couple from Texas on their honeymoon and stole their van. They would then travel back south toward Mexico, taking back roads and staying out of the eye of authority. Little did the gang know, multiple police roadblocks would be waiting for them until about 2:45 a.m. on August 11th, where they would slow down at a roadblock and open fire and ram through the squad cars at 90 miles an hour. And about 6 more miles, another roadblock came into their path, and the officers opened fire, killing the driver, Donald Tison, from a shot to the forehead, causing the van to veer off the road and into a ditch. "It's everyone for himself," Gary Tison said as he attempted to escape, leaving the other 3 men to be arrested and taken into custody. Gary was nowhere to be seen until about 2 weeks later, where he would be found laying in the middle of the desert, dead of heat stroke. After the horrifying events that put the state of Arizona in a panic, Tison's 3 sons and Randy Greenawalt were taken into custody. Greenawalt was sentenced to death, and he was executed by lethal injection in 1997. Raymond and Ricky Tison were initially sentenced to death in 1989, but the sentence would be changed to a life sentence in 1992. And inmate Robert Tison was granted parole for his good deed of telling officials of Tison's plan. Shortly after the events took place, Warden Harold Cardwell of the Arizona State Prison would be removed by Governor Bruce Babbitt, as Cardwell had failed to prevent the escape. The state of Arizona took notice of the large amount of corruption in their prison facilities and began to put numerous reforms and changes into action to avoid making any escape of that nature possible again.